Our next speaker is Zoltán Kész. He's one of the founders of the Free Market Foundation in Hungary. Zoltán had the chance right after the changes took place in 1990 to study in America, and 10 years later to teach American history in a California high school as a Fulbright scholar. Zoltán participated in the Liberty Seminar in 2008. He was the first graduate on the Atlas Leadership Academy in 2012. Still as a teacher, he has written several course books for learners of English. He became the Asia Entrepreneur of the Year in February 2014 with the common project of the Free Market Foundation and Political Capital to target racism in Hungary. He helped to set up the Eötvös József Club, which is part of the Student for Liberty network. The foundation has started a serious anti-racist campaign to combat the rising anti-Semitic tendencies in the country. Zoltán has recently won a by-election in Hungary in a crucial moment. His historic victory has ended the two-thirds majority of the governing party. Please welcome Zoltán.
Hi everybody, how are you all doing? Good? I heard you had good parties last night. Food is good, Berlin is good, weather is good, everything is good. Company is good, the double bed hotel is not so good, as I heard. But all right, so coming back to what the presenter said there, I'm an independent MP in the Hungarian parliament, a brand new guy in the Hungarian parliament, which even surprised me. And a couple of months ago, I wasn't even thinking of running as a candidate, but well, things worked out in different ways, and I was very happy doing what I was doing at the Free Market Foundation, but I ended up as an MP on the 22nd of February. And I'm going to tell you a story how it happened. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Hungary, the background of what you have to know about why it was a crucial moment, some background about the past 5 years in Hungarian politics, and I'll also talk about a little things about like what the Free Market Foundation has been doing in the past years. So let's start the presentation. So this is Hungary in the middle of Europe, in Central Europe, and Hungary is part of the European Union, as you know, but unfortunately the Hungarian government doesn't know if it's part of the European Union or not. Hungarian government is still hesitating whether it should lick the boots of Putin or be part of the European Union. In the past 5 years, we've seen a kind of like hesitation in the Hungarian government where we should belong, and unfortunately, our Prime Minister has made it clear that actually it happened this week or last week. He was in Kazakhstan, and he said that we feel at home in the East, in the European Union. We are not at home. We are not welcomed by our friends in the European Union. So he's very much friendly now with people in the East. That means Putin, that means Azerbaijan, that means Kazakhstan. He even said last year in an address in Romania that he is now building an illiberal state. God knows what he meant by illiberal state, but we've seen a couple of examples of what he meant by that, and I'll talk about that as well. So we're kind of between, not only geographically, but now politically, between Russia and the European Union, although we are part of the European Union. So, let's see. Parliament. Well, I have to go back to 2010. 2010 was a crucial year because it ended an 8-year reign of the Socialist Party. A lot of people were happy that, finally the socialist rule is over, we'll have something new, and they voted the new prime minister with his government with a 2/3 majority. And that's when it all started, this whole mystery of the 2/3 majority of it should be orange, the orange party, the Fidesz, they claim to be, I mean, they claim that they are conservative, that they claim that they are, in a way, liberal, even libertarian. 20 years ago, they were supported by a lot of groups that are sponsors here, actually. I'm not going to name any of them, but that's true. 20 years ago, they were very liberal guys. Right now, they are very crony people. They have 2/3 majority, and that's just part of the problem. Another part of the problem is another party. Besides the Fidesz party, there are the socialists, and there is I call them neo-Nazi party. According to courts, I can call them neo-Nazis now. But yeah, they are really neo-Nazis. I mean, in the past 5 years since they've been in parliament, they have proved to be openly anti-Semitic, openly against the Roma community in Hungary, and unfortunately, at the moment, they are the second most popular party in Hungary. Fidesz has right now 21%, according to the polls. This other party called Jobbik has 18%, meaning 1.5 million voters out of a population of 10 million people. So that's another problem in the country. Now, it was in 2010, but we're still talking about the 2/3 majority and 2/3 majority that I broke, but I want to go ahead in time. Let's just take at what came about due to this 2/3 majority. Wow, absolute power I wrote there. But this is true, actually. I mean, if we looked at parliament, with 2/3 majority, what can you do? Whatever you want. Yeah, that's basically whatever they wanted, they voted on. This is what I'm experiencing in parliament at the moment, because although they don't have 2/3 majority, but for a lot of laws you just need 50% plus 1 votes, and right now what they're doing is they're just voting and just voting, or not voting, so they don't even listen. That's why when you go to the Hungarian parliament, look at the broadcast, you see empty seats, because people just don't want to waste time there because nobody listens to them. So coming back to 2010, a couple of things that they did, and that's how I'm going to prove how crony this government was. First thing was the nationalization of the private pension funds. We had this private pension fund system going on from 1997, and at the end of 2010, the Hungarian government decided that it needed to fill the holes of the national debt. So they said, okay, let's take some money away from the people. You know, when it comes to the fact that you have to think about how to take money away from the people, they came up with this brilliant idea that, let's nationalize the private pensions. And I say, okay, nationalization, but it's really stealing. So whatever we accumulated throughout the years landed in the bottomless pockets of the government. So that was one of the first things. The second, well, this is another favorite of mine, the tobacco retail industry, I say, creating a monopoly. Now, they were not happy with the fact that basically any shop could sell tobacco products. They wanted to somehow make a very strict system, just certain so-called tobacco shops, which actually in some countries I've seen examples of, but you know, Hungary had a very liberal system in this sense, so we did not regulate where you could sell tobacco products. So you look like a good prime minister here. If you want to create a monopoly, who are you going to favor? Yourself, but you know when you we might be going that way if we make friends with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan, but we're not there yet. With not only yourself, but of course. So when you create a monopoly of a certain industry, you favor your friends. You say, hey, buddy, you want a tobacco shop? I want 3, deal. So yes, that's what they did. I mean, when it happened, they really just gave these shops to their friends, to the friends of the friends and family members. In my city where I live, one of the very prominent soccer coaches got most of the tobacco shops for some reason. The Prime Minister is a big fan of soccer. I forgot to tell you that. So it came to this other Crony thing. Cut on utility costs, that's the next one. Well, it was 2014, coming to the next elections, and we have elections every 4 years. 2014, the government had to come up with a brilliant idea to keep itself in power. You know, we're not satisfied with 4 years, we want more and more and more and more. So if you're the prime, I'm designating everybody a prime minister. So how would you do that? What would you promise to the people? You know, free beer. Of course, I've heard it from somewhere. Of course, I call this the free beer campaign, although they were not campaigning with free beer, they were campaigning with the fact that they told utility companies, you know, gas, electricity, water companies, to cut their costs by first 10% and some more, all the way to 20%. Now we have these French, German utility companies there who are forced, or were forced back in 2014, to cut their costs. Were people happy?
Yes.
Why? Lower costs, of course. People are very happy. That's why I'm calling it the free beer campaign, although it was not about beer. So, yeah, of course. Oh, let's vote for this party because they are giving us electricity for, I don't know, 80% of the price. They are giving us water for 80% of the price. And even when you get your electricity bill, you have it written in orange. Oh, it's not there because their color is orange. In orange letters, at least in my city, that this month the government saved, let's say, 25 euros for you. And you're happy because the government is so brave that it defeated the cruel international community and multinational companies, and that's our brave government, so let's vote for them. In 2014, again they got 2/3 majority in the Hungarian parliament, but we're not there yet. There were some extra taxes, especially on banks and telecommunication companies, also punitive taxation or retrospective taxation. What I say is that in this case, they looked at certain sectors of the economy, and they said, the telecommunication sector is a successful one. Let's tax them. Okay, that's one thing. But let's apply the tax to the beginning of this year. So if you are a company, can you count on, can you predict, can you have like a good predictability for the year? Of course not. Because you never know when you're going to be taxed. Last week, I have to say we because I'm in parliament now, but we passed a bill, which I didn't vote for, and in this bill, we punished some brokers, but going back a year. Another retrospective taxation, which I didn't vote for because I don't believe in retrospective taxation. Okay, some more things. Centralizing education. Well, as you heard from the introduction, I used to be a teacher, so I'm kind of pissed about this thing. As they centralized education, everything, I mean, really everything is decided in one spot. In the capital city, they tell you who the principal of a school is going to be, what books you have to use, and now actually, back then when I was a teacher, we could use from hundreds of books, for example, to teach from. Now, the government says, well, you have the choice of 2 books. The government produced with some, again, friends companies, created some books, and then said, okay, you can choose from 2 books. One is bad, the other is very bad. Which one do you want? So teachers have the choice, which they really don't have. So
there's only one book. Poland for class 1 to 3, I think there's only one book.
Really? You should come to Hungary then. We have a choice.
It's a liberal state.
Exactly. So we have a liberal state, yes, and we can choose from two very, very bad books, actually. So say centralized education, even if you're a principal of a school, you cannot choose the teachers who work for you, because it's also chosen centrally. So that's what I'm really angry about. Also, I talked about Russia, and I will come back to Russia too. They made a secret pact with Russia in connection with building a second nuclear plant in Hungary. We have no details about how it's going to be brought about. It has been classified. Actually, it's classified for 30 years. So we don't know what's in the deal. They're going to build a nuclear plant, and we'll see. Good thing. Also, well, do we have some German people in the audience? 1, 2. Oh, good, because now I'm going to talk about your taxpayer money. You know, we get a lot of money from the European Union. I think we are the second after Poland in getting, in this 7 years, getting the amount from the European Union, and our government is very happy with that, because our government can, you know, build roads and bridges and all these wonderful things. But who's building these things? Again, the friends and the friends and the friends. But also, in the past 5 years, what we've seen, not only on the national level, but local political levels as well, we've seen a lot of politicians, very corrupt politicians, who are somehow, this money, or some percentage of this money, lands in their pockets. I think it's a problem not only in Hungary, but in Poland and other countries as well. But as we've seen, and we've seen a lot of corruption cases in the past years, a lot of politicians have become very rich on European Union money. I usually say German taxpayer money, because it's in a lot of cases German taxpayers. So you should be aware that your money is going into the pockets of nice politicians in other countries. So warn your government about it. I think they've been warned before, but they don't really care. Okay, the government has seen the threat, besides the multinational companies, in NGOs. In the past year, just like Putin in Russia, well, not that brutally, but the Hungarian government also tried to somehow deal with these NGOs, close some NGOs, also investigate some NGOs financially, so it made their daily work kind of very hard, because the government believes that NGOs are very critical, so they should be dealt with in a way. Hopefully we won't get to where Russia is at the moment. So, Free Market Foundation, because we started working in the Free Market Foundation back in 2011 with the help of Tom Palmer standing there and Dan Grossman sitting there. So with Atlas supported the Free Market Foundation, and at first Free Market Foundation dealt with a lot of things, conferences about free markets, and Milton Friedman, for example, whose parents were Hungarian, so you didn't know that. And we had educational projects, we had books translated, some Atlas books, for example, and other things. And we have a very, very successful blog called Capitalism Blog, so we write about capitalism. Mate sitting there is part of the, hands up Mate, is a very prominent figure in the Free Market Foundation. He's going to have a talk at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So Mate is a young person and a Students for Liberty guy, but also works for us. And he writes a lot of articles for Students for Liberty and for lots of things, and he blogs with us, and he's a very good guy. So these are the things that we've done. I don't want to go into details with that. And here we're coming to November last year. Well, last year there were 3 elections in Hungary. One was the national election in April, 2/3 majority again. The other was the European Parliament. Fidesz received the majority of the votes. And in October, the municipal elections, which again ended in most of the cities with a Fidesz, so the governing party's victory. After that, however, Fidesz, for some reason, became kind of insane, trying to make laws, pass laws, or come up with ideas, for example, taxing the internet. And this was something that really caused an outrage in the country, because normally, Who are the people using the internet? Young people. Normally young people in Eastern Europe. So who are the people usually voting? Old people. So now Fidesz was trying to do something that was against young people who normally don't vote, don't go to the streets, don't demonstrate, don't protest. But it happened in October and November. We had a series of protests throughout the country, and on November 17th in my city, that's me talking, I gave a speech. It was the day of public outrage, that's what we called it, in 25 different cities. Also in Berlin and London, the Hungarian communities in these cities had demonstrations. Esther, were you part of this one in Berlin? Yes, so even people abroad, Hungarian people abroad, protested against the government, and I was giving a speech in my city, and that's when my political career started, because up until then I was an NGO leader, very happy guy, but after this people approached me and said, hey Zoltán, you should run for parliament, because there was one seat that was now vacant, because our MP started working for the European Commission, so we had a by-election, and they were looking for somebody. And they said, hey Zoltán, you speak well. That's what they thought. And they said, oh, do you want to do it? And it was November 17th. My son was 3 days old. So I went to the hospital after this nice gathering, and I told my wife, hey, I think I'm running for parliament. She said, okay. So in the first 3 months of the baby, he only saw me as a campaign dad. So I started the campaign. So let's talk about it a little bit, because this was a very interesting campaign in a lot of, well, due to a lot of things. First of all, this was a constituency where the governing party was very dominant. Last year, at the normal general election, the governing party's guy defeated the socialist candidate by 9,000 votes. He got 22,000, the other guy got 13,000. So everybody said that it's no use running against the government's guy, because you're going to lose, because there's no way you're going to win. You know, it's a traditionally Fidesz constituency. We had a different idea. First of all, I ran as an independent candidate. And although I was supported by a lot of parties, especially parties that we call are on the left, but it's a different thing. In Hungary, when you can be a free market person and still be on the left, but it's an interesting thing. So I was supported by six parties and a couple of NGOs, but I was still an independent candidate running against the government's guy who is the vice or deputy mayor of my city. So well, he was on the front pages of the newspaper every day, usually like 3 different photographs about him, nothing about me. So for three months, he had this advantage of being the government's guy, and he was supported in every media outlet that was controlled by the government, and I was depicted as an evil person. Back in December, I remember I was giving a talk in Athens to another Students for Liberty gathering. That's when I started the campaign. Just the day before that, I was called a free market fundamentalist. And everybody said, oh, a free market fundamentalist is running for parliament. It's insane. You can't vote on a guy who's a free market fundamentalist. They don't even know what a fundamentalist is. But one day I was depicted as a free market fundamentalist. The next day I was depicted as a communist. The third day I was depicted as something totally different. So people didn't even know what I was by the time February the 22nd came, because I was depicted like so many things. And they were running a very, very negative campaign about me, which was an experience. I don't know how many of you have experienced a very negative campaign, but they were talking about everything, my family life, sexual life, personal life, professional life. They even, back when I was an English teacher, I wrote several English course books. They even said that in one of the course books I was using a topic that's talking about different things. So what? So that was, I mean, they thought that was a very negative campaign. In the national media, they painted a picture about me as I'm the really the evil guy. And let me tell you a personal story about that, and not a professional one. My dad, who has been a pro-government person, or pro-Fidesz person for 20 years, he was not happy when I announced that I'm running against the government, because he praises Viktor Orbán as the savior of the nation. And in the past 20 years, my dad has always watched the news broadcast of the national television channel at 7:30. Like every night, that's his, habit, sitting down, 7:30, that's the news, and that's what the truth is. At one point during the campaign, I was at his house, and he was sitting down to watch his usual show. And I came on, I was the star of every night. And then I watched my dad's face, because he was watching the news, it was about me, and my dad said, Zoltán, this is not you. I mean, this is not true. And I said, well, yeah. And then, you see the transformation on his face, and kind of like the transformation in him realizing that he had been watching this thing for 20 years, and that might not have been true. And that for me, this was a sad moment, but a happy moment too, because that's when my dad decided that he's going to vote for me. But yeah, this was really shocking for him. Now about the campaign, funding of the campaign. In Hungary, we have a limit about campaign financing, campaign funding. Now, I couldn't even reach that limit. The government's guy exceeded the limit with huge amount of money. I mean, they don't even keep their own laws. They had tons of posters everywhere, lots of media everywhere. We had very little. However, we decided to change tactics and strategy, and well, we had our feet, so we said, okay, let's work 24/7 and go to every single village, every single house, and we knocked on every single door, as many as we could, and I talked to people. And I think this was one of the keys to my victory, that, well, there were lots of different factors that contributed to the victory, but this was a key. The other candidates didn't do it. They said, oh, let's sit behind our Facebook page and generate a few likes. That might help. We didn't do it. We went every day, even if it was snowing or raining, and we were talking to people, and I had a very good campaign team, and they came with me, very, very enthusiastic volunteers. But also other things that contributed. Obviously, so I would be lying if I just said that everybody voted. I mean, a lot of people voted for me because I look good. No, it's not true. A lot of people voted for me because they were dissatisfied with the current government, one thing. A lot of people voted for me because they realized that this 2/3 majority should end, and unless we do it, we might really end up in Uzbekistan or somewhere. If there's somebody from Uzbekistan here, I'm sorry. And the third thing was the fact that I was an independent candidate. I was not a member of a party. People in Hungary are fed up with parties. And that this was another key factor in the victory. However, still a lot of people did not have any faith. Even like leaders of parties that supported me said, you don't really have a chance. But we did it, and just the next slide. This was the night of the victory, and I was very happy. The whole country was happy. Tom Palmer was happy because he called me on Skype, and media all over Europe. I mean, the next week I was approached by BBC, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, Der Standard, and other outlets, New York Times. So everybody in the whole, I would say whole world was happy, because now they see that there is a kind of alternative in Hungary. We know that the next election is going to be in 2018, 3 more years. But we have 3 years to build something up from scratch, from zero. We have the model how to do it. We need to find people who are willing to fight and willing to go ahead with what we have in mind. And if we can do it, then in 2018 we might be able to end this tyranny that's been going on in Hungary for 5 years. So, well, some new experiences about Parliament. I was just telling my Hungarian friends before this talk that I'm very disappointed in how Parliament works, because it's just not working. Everything is done, solved or voted on as the government thinks it should be voted on. But the funniest story, you might have that in your country as well, I don't know. I'm in a committee, the Justice Committee, and in the Justice Committee there are 7 government guys and 5 people from the opposition. And usually the government people don't say anything. They always just vote when it comes to the vote, and they never ever allow an opposition proposal go through. They just vote, they don't speak. On Tuesday, this week, on Tuesday, 3 Fidesz members were missing. I said, now it's time to do something, because they don't have the majority. The way it works in our committees is that somebody who's there can substitute somebody who is not there. So this is how they voted. So somebody who was there voted on behalf of somebody who wasn't there. So they had the majority again, and no proposal went through. Is it the same in your countries? Not even in Serbia, see? But in Hungary this is something. And so that after a minute, when I saw this was happening, I just leaned back and I said, all right, let time pass and have fun. So I ended the 2/3 majority, and what are the alternatives now? You are laughing, but actually tomorrow there is another by-election in a constituency in my county, so the neighboring constituency, because an MP died. And in this constituency, the model that marked my victory is not followed for some reason. The socialists decided to have their own person, and Fidesz has its own person, and this is the Jobbik guy, the neo-Nazi guy. You can see the parts of the swastika on his chest. Oops, sorry, it's my chest. On his chest, and he has all these tattoos. He is the candidate for parliament. People tomorrow in Hungary are going to vote either on him or somebody else, and he has a pretty good chance of winning. So what are the alternatives? The alternative is either to follow something different, something that we did in my constituency, or as people are dissatisfied in the current government, a lot of people would shift to the neo-Nazis and support them with their votes. We'll see it tomorrow. So if you follow Hungarian news tomorrow, it's not affecting the 2/3 majority anymore, but it affects something. If the Jobbik guy, if this nice gentleman wins tomorrow, it means that they will have their first constituency where they could win. They already have a lot of seats in parliament. They have 3 MEPs in Brussels, and they are, as we call them, they are the Trojan horse of the Kremlin in the European Union, just like Marine Le Pen in France. These parties are Front National, and I think people in the European Union should be scared that this should not be happening in Hungary. People looking for alternatives in the neo-Nazis. So these are the alternatives. The other alternatives are Prime Minister in bed with Putin, but I've already talked about it, so I don't want to waste time on talking about how we are in bed with Putin. So, still I'm very hopeful, and I hope that by 2018 we can bring about some change. And just to end with a personal story, I always tell this story. These are my two sons. One is 14, the other is 4 months now, or 5 actually, next week. Well, yeah, this is something that I really did personally. So when I was 16 years old in 1990, when changes came to Eastern Europe. And in 1990, I had the chance to be a student in Georgia, in the United States. And I really loved it. I enjoyed every single second of it. And, you know, Georgia, that's the place of Martin Luther King Jr. And obviously, we had to write our I Have a Dream speeches in the high school in Georgia, in Blairsville, Georgia, where I was. And my dream back in 1990 was that by the time my children become 16, and I was 16 at the time, I want them to live in a society which is peaceful, tolerant, full of liberty and freedom and love, just like what I saw in the US back in 1990. Now, as I said, my older son is 14 now. I have 2 more years somehow to fulfill my dream. I hope I won't have to wait another 16 years till my younger son Peter becomes 16. So I hope that with sensible people in Hungary we can bring about some change in the near future. So this was it. If you have any questions, comments, anything, feel free to ask. Ooh, lots of questions. There are lots of questions there.
Okay, first of all, I want to give this certificate. Well, I see one over there.
Thank you very much for your speech. I'm from Russia, and you mentioned Vladimir Putin. It was a very fine Photoshop. Unfortunately, Hungarian government is one of the few. Hungary is one of the few European countries where government supports Putin's action, and Russia. And the Hungarian president is friend and supporter of Russian president. And what do the society think about this? This is one question. And the second question is, are there any facts that they receive any aid from Russia and why do you think they do this?
Okay, first thing, what society thinks. First of all, you know, a lot of people, and I talked about my dad, a lot of people are blind and they say, oh, what Mr. Orban says or does is correct. If it's Putin, it's Putin. If it's the European Union, it's the European Union. We don't care if this is the path he leads us on, we should accept it. And a lot of people do accept it. They forget the fact that 25 years ago we kicked the Russians out. Yeah, somehow. But you know, the Russians were ruling over us for more than 30 years, and we tend to forget this fact. Even in the ruling party, there are a lot of members of the former Communist Party, which is a very sad thing, but it's true, although I was the one during the campaign who was called a communist. Actually, 2 days ago I was called a communist, so I was very honored that I was a communist as a capitalist, but whatever. The other thing, the support. Well, first of all, in the past couple of years there have been a lot of studies that show that the neo-Nazi party has been supported by Russia. First of all, one of the MEPs is considered a Russian spy, as it was written down by several studies that he still works for Russia, and they get a lot of support from Russia. There was one Jobbik person, former MEP, who got out of the party, and we talked to him. He said he admitted that they have a lot of money coming in from Russia. So even this week, there was a study that just this week, just like 2 days ago, that came out, which proved that our neo-Nazi party is somehow, as I said, the Trojan horse in the European Union. So if you're interested, I can send you this material, because I think we have that in English as well. I have the study, I just read it, as I said, 2 days ago. So yes, gentlemen.
Okay, we'll take the question from the guy with the blue shirt over there.
Hello, my name is Rafał Opiał from Poland. Thank you for your speech, that was very interesting. And I'm very interested in how did you convince the people during your campaign, when you talk to people that are supporters of your government and the media, how did you convince them by talking face to face?
Well, it's two things. First of all, let's separate the media and the people. Well, we asked questions. I didn't want to convince them because I don't think that I know the answer to everything. However, we started asking questions. For example, are you happy with the fact that we are friends with Russia again, for example? Are you happy with this and this politician becoming super rich in the past 5 years due to this and that? And in a lot of cases, and here I'm coming to your second question, in a lot of cases we realized that most of the people, especially in the villages, get their information from state-sponsored media. National TV, national radio, and the local newspaper. However, we gave them more information about how things were going, and I think this was a key thing. The other thing that helped us, in my constituency there is a city, my city where I live, and 24 small villages. And we believe that if we can convince more people, we can mobilize more people in the city, which is usually like it's a university city, lots of young people, then we have success, we have a victory. And we did that, and we did that through social media, for example. We were very active on Facebook. We had more than 9,600 followers on Facebook, which was way more than the other parties had. And so we had a kind of two-way strategy, one focusing on these young people and higher educated people in the city, and talking to people in the villages. And people in the villages loved it when I went there. They said, oh, they even called their neighbors out, hey, come out, the candidate is here, come on. And like, we had a huge gathering, and I started talking, listening to them. It really counted. They really felt that it's about them. The other candidates didn't do it. Only in the last week when they realized that they were behind me in the polls. So, media. Well, this media that I'm talking about in Hungary was very biased. The state media, of course. But we've concentrated and focused on so-called friendly media, opposition media, especially online media. Offline media was out of our reach. Online media, however, was a big help to us. So whenever we had a chance, I always say we, because it's not only about me, but the whole team. So whenever we had a chance, we were in an online paper, online television somehow, or video, but we tried to be present in every single online media that was friendly to us, giving interviews, sometimes 6-7 interviews a day. The other candidate, the government guy was afraid of giving interviews, for example. He was somehow hidden from the public, and that helped. Yeah, well, before the election, our local paper, which is a pro-government paper, was dealing with the election every day. As I said, nice photos of the deputy mayor. As I won, this was it, like an inch about a victory, and it was on the 5th page have some short news about the percentages of my victory. But, you know, that happens. Thank you.
Yes, there's a question over here.
Yes, sir.
I'll give you that. Yeah, here you go.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Gilles Verstaten from Belgium. I get the impression that, and this, I apologize for putting it this way, but that Hungary might be the country that is politically worst off in Europe. A lot of people are talking about Golden Dawn, for example, in Greece, which only manages to get 5% of the vote, whilst Jobbik, which is an equally horrible party, gets 10% of the vote. More than, closer to 25% now.
As I said, now at the polls they are at 18%.
Okay.
They have managed to become the second most popular party in the country.
Yeah.
So we have a Crony party and we have a neo-Nazi party as the first two choices.
Yes. But people don't really seem to realize it. Do you think it would help if more attention would be drawn to it internationally as well?
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. That's what I've been trying to emphasize in a lot of cases when I go to conferences and when I go to meet people, that it's needed. We need international attention so that people are aware of how the international community looks at us. So, definitely.
Okay, that's it for question because we don't have any more time.
I'm available in the yard.
So thank you very much, Zoltán Kész.
Giga T, crowdfunding for you and me.